Boy.
All right. We're gonna just wait. We're live. Baba Mwale. It's pronounced Mwalaimu.
Mwlaimu AMSATA, but you can just call me Brother AMSATA.
A brother AMSATA.
That's good.
Okay. How do you pronounce the first name anyway? Just for my own edification.
Mwlaimu AMSATA, but just call me Brother AMSATA.
Mwlaimu. Okay. All right. Brother AMSATA.
Mwlaimu. Mwlaimu is Swahili for teacher.
Mwlaimu. Okay. All right. So we are live. Greetings, Sister Tanya. We are just giving a few people to get in here before we begin. Greetings, peace, love, and light to you too, sis. Welcome. Come on in, beautiful Black people. Okay. All right. So we've got some people watching. Let's go ahead and get this on the road. Hello, Cheryl. How you doing? All right. So, hey, Brother Ahmed. Hello. How are you? Welcome. Today we have our brother AMSATA, who is the coordinator for the Pan-African Federation movement, correct?
I'm getting like an overtone.
Excuse me?
Federalist.
Pan-African Federalist movement. Can you hear me, brother AMSATA?
I hear you, but there's kind of like a disconnect, and I'm getting the back sound. Yeah.
You don't have it playing on another device, do you?
Let me see. Let me make sure. I don't think so. Let me. My daughter does it. She's in the living room.
Okay, it could be a little bit of that if she's too close to you.
Did you just hear that?
No, I don't hear it, but I'm saying if you're hearing some feedback, it could be that she's too close to you.
Oh. Okay.
Just ask her to turn her volume down a little bit.
Okay, hold on just a second. Edwina,
Okay.
Can you turn down your phone just a little bit and go into the kitchen? Turn your volume down a little bit and go into the kitchen. Just far back. Okay.
All right.
Brother
AMSATA, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm blessed and highly favored, and thank you, Sista Yaa, for inviting me. Really appreciate that.
Good. We are excited to learn about the Pan-African Federalist movement and what your mission is, and anything you can share about that for our people who are looking for answers and looking for solutions, because as you know, I think you know, we as African descendants in the diaspora are in a state of emergency. And so we are looking for all organizations that are working for the total liberation of African people. So please tell us about the Pan-African Federalist movement.
Okay, the reason why I was hesitating is because right after you said everything, I was hearing it again. So I don't know if there's a technical thing. I'm going to tell my daughter to turn off and come in here. See, are you hearing everything again? No. It's yours is lagging behind. It's because Okay. Okay. We're going to try to, we're going to work through it. Some reason mine is logging behind, but I think you asked me about the Pan-African Federalist movement, right? Okay. First, thank you for this opportunity again. And I want to thank you also for the work that you're doing with the Sankofa Repatriation Assistance Program. One of the things that we believe as Pan-African Federalists, particularly in North America, is that African people in North America have a right to return to Africa. And this is an old, this is not new. It goes back to Martin Delany in 1859 when he actually went to the Southwest Africa, Nigeria, and made a treaty with the chiefs there. And of course, Garvey talked about limited repatriation. He wasn't trying to get everybody to go back, but it's important to understand that we as African people in North America never surrendered our sovereignty, that we were forced migrated, that we were kidnapped, forced migrated, and then enslaved. So we have a right to go back to Africa, any part in Africa. Man, one of the things that the Pan-African Federalist movement is doing, we have a sole exclusive mission, which is to bring the United African States into political existence now. And we believe that once that is done and the Constitution is established, which would include African people in North America, part of that Constitution would be the right of African people, wherever they are, to return to Africa. So that would be a constitutional right that we would have to return, that no African, any place on the continent, would be able to deny.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, I'm just letting it, I was letting it run by, letting the echo run. So let me say this. The Pan-African Federalist movement is a global movement. And we have 9 regions throughout the world. And I'm the coordinator for the North American region. We also have a region in the Caribbean. We have one in Latin America. We have one in West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, Northern Africa, and also in Europe. And we all are committed to bringing the United African States into political existence now. The goal we have is I'm just, excuse me, because it's a bad echo back and forth, but we're gonna work through it.
It sounds perfect on my end. I don't know what it is. Are you all hearing?
My phones are turned off completely, so I don't know.
Okay.
No, my daughter's not hearing it either, so it's something here. I don't know. Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the Pan-African Federalist movement, our mission is to bring the United African States into political existence. And yeah, our focus is on the 47 million African people in North America, and the 1.2 million in Canada. And together, if we were a nation state, we would be the 8th largest African nation on earth. And with a 1.2 trillion buying power, we would be the richest African nation on earth. And so our goal in trying to mobilize the African population in North America behind the goal of bringing the United African States into political existence. And when we talk about that, we're talking about 1.3 billion African people. And this will enable us to speak as a united and sovereign people from a position of strength. If we would be the masters of our own destiny, we'd be the controllers of our own affairs, and we would be able to deal with the powers that be, whether they be China, Europe, North America, from a position of strength. Instead of China is 1 billion people dealing with a nation with even like as large as Nigeria with 200 million people. It would have to be dealing with a president of a global African nation of 1.3 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a whole different story. And it would alter the destiny of African people wherever they are on earth, including right here in North America.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now somebody is saying you need to turn off the mic on your end. You have 2 mics. That's why you're getting the feedback loop. So if your laptop has a mic and your headset has a mic, that may be the source of your problem. Can you hear me? Well, you got your headset plugged in, so you can't hear me now. If there's a mic on your earphones, and then there's also one on your laptop that you're using, that may be it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, everything you're saying twice, but don't worry about it. It's on my end. No, I don't have a mic on my laptop. That's why I have to use the earphones. And this hasn't happened before, but it's okay. We're gonna work through it. African people we have the determination. We're able to work through any situation, and we have a goal. We have a responsibility to our people, to our ancestors, to make everything happen. The struggle continues, and Africa must unite now, and we have to keep our eye on the prize to do that regardless of any obstacles. So I don't know, this may be some sort of technical issue that they're trying to stop us with, but it's not going to work.
Right. And then you can also, because you and I did a test run and we didn't have this problem earlier.
No, we didn't.
But if you want, you can try to go out and come back in and see if that fixes the problem. Do you want to try that before we go on?
I'm hearing everything you say twice. Sure. So what would I do? Just sign out completely?
You can leave the studio. He said he doesn't have 2 browsers. You don't have two StreamYard browsers open, do you?
I'm wondering. I have, let me see. I wonder if I'm still on from earlier this morning. Let me see. Let me see something.
We're going to get it right. We're going to get it tight, guys. Don't worry. Yeah, Dwayne, he said that his daughter is listening to it, but she's in a completely different room. So it may be that he had 2 StreamYard, because we did do a test run earlier today. But anyway, let's let him get on back in here and we'll see. But we're gonna work it out. Like he said, we African people. We're gonna work it out anyway. Hi, Black Girl Magic. Thank you. Welcome. Hello, Yusuf. Greetings, everyone. Absolutely. Y'all notice how when I did my telethon, how it was just all jacked up, the sound. For some reason, it was just mostly me, though, because I went back and I looked through, and for the most part, you could hear everybody else well. But for some reason, I'm the one streaming. I was the host, and it was just pure hell. But since then, no problems anymore. It's just weird, right? Weird or setup. No problems before then, and no problems right after. So I tend to think that it was a setup. But hey, as long as we're using their platforms, I guess that's just what it is. So I see Brother AMSATA, he needs to turn on his mic and headset. Mic and cam, so that I can put him back on the stream. Okay, here we go.
Can you see me and hear me?
All right. Yes.
Can you
How
hear
is it
me?
now?
It's
Yes.
good. Can you hear me? No echo.
Yes. Okay, good.
That's a success. We've achieved it. And just as we conquered that problem, we're going to conquer that unification of African people. And it's a goal that is not a new goal. It goes back to Garvey in 1927. He wrote a poem, Hail of the United States of Africa. It goes to Kwame Nkrumah in 1958 at the All African Peoples Convention, where he brought together 62 African liberation movements from across the continent. And it was Ghana had just become independent in 1957. Guinea had become independent in 1958. But he said that this is the decade of African independence. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa. And then in 1960, 18 countries became independent. So this year, 2020, there's 18 countries that are going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary. Ghana and Guinea have already done that. And in the Pan-African Federalist movement, we're seeing this year, 2020, as our big leap forward. And it parallels the 18 countries that became independent 60 years ago. And bear in mind, before the end of the decade, another 16 are going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary. So the 60s in Africa was a very fast-moving decade for African freedom. And as you know, we weren't exactly twiddling our thumbs here in North America at that time. Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of like a connection between African people that automatically works. We were working on one front, we're working on the other front. You don't even need to talk to each other. It's just automatic because we are single people. Right. Go ahead.
I want to ask you, so are you all working with the African Union? Are you recognized by the African Union? How do you have a relationship at all with the African Union with this movement?
We recognize the African Union, but the path that we're taking is a different one. The African Union, and permit me to do a little history here on this. The African Union has a agenda for 2063, which is the 100th anniversary of their founding. And currently they're not talking about African unification until sometime around 2063. If I have my book, The New Pan-Africanism 2020, I talk about the first decade of this century, where the African Union debated the question of African unity back and forth and got nowhere. Julius Nyerere in 1997, at the 40th anniversary of Ghana's independence, he gave a speech in which he was looking back over the 37 years of the African freedom movement. And he recalled that back in 1963, Kwame Nkrumah in the Casablanca group wanted immediate unification of Africa then. They wanted an African unity right then. But there was this other group, the Monrovia group, who were more nationalists, and they were happy that they became heads of states, and they wanted to keep it that way. They didn't want to surrender their sovereignty. The compromise was the Organization of African Unity. Now, Julius Nyerere, looking back in 1997, is a 75-year-old. He's looking back on himself, and he's criticizing his own generation himself. He's saying that the Organization of African Unity failed miserably on the question of African unity. These are not my words. These are the words of Julius Nyerere, first president of Tanzania, one of the founding fathers of modern Africa. He says, and who was a witness, a front row seat to everything from Ghana's independence in 1957 to Mandela's assuming the presidency of South Africa in 1994, 37 years later. The completion of what Kwame Nkrumah said, that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked to the total independence of the African continent, that completed it. Right. But Nyerere saw it all from a front row seat. And his assessment of his own generation was that the Organization of African Unity had failed miserably on the question of African unity. And his challenge to our generation is to work to make African unity our priority, because without unity, there is no future for Africa. Again, Julius Nyerere's words. So the organization, the African Union, the way it is structured, and it replaced the Organization of African Unity in 2002. But it's a little bit, it's not that much significantly different. First place, you have to look at the charter. The charter starts off by saying, we, the heads of states of Africa. So it's a compact between heads of states of Africa. It doesn't say we, the people of Africa, which is what a constitution of Africa would say, we, the people. It's we, the heads of states. So it's an agreement between heads of states. And do you think, let me ask you a question, Sister Yaa. If you were a head of state of one of 55 African countries, would you be anxious to become a governor of one of the states?
Well, no. And that's the question I was going to ask you. Do you think any of these people are even now today ready to give up their power as president and become governors?
Right. That's a good question. And that's a question that Neri made a joke in the same speech in 1997. He says he remembers being on the plane going back home, and he overheard one of the other heads of states was saying, well, at least I'm going back to my country and I'm still head of state, because it was a question whether that was going to be the case, because Kwame Nkrumah was pushing for that not to be the case. Okay, here's the situation as we assess it. So I think there's a built-in structure within the Organization of African Unity and within the African Union, which makes it unlikely that they could actually bring the United African States into political existence. By the way, we say United African States because we include Trinidad, Jamaica, Haiti. We consider those to be African states in the Caribbean. So instead of saying United States of Africa, we say United African States. We consider the 47 million African people in North America who would be a part. We will be a part of this African United African States. So we consider that. So we have a more global vision. We talk in terms of what Garvey talked about, establishing a global political entity on which the sun will never set. So that's where we're coming from. But the whole idea of if the Organization of African Unity, or if the African Union, who concluded after the first decade of debate that they were right back where they were in 1963, if they were going to do it, it would have already been done. And it has not been done. And structurally, we think it can't be done because of it. So we, in the Pan-African Federalist movement, we are a bottoms-up mass movement. We have an international preparatory council, which me as a coordinator and my secretary general and my deputy coordinator are all members of that. All of the coordinators, remember I mentioned 8 other regions, we all part of the International Preparatory Committee, and we meet once a month. But then as the North American Coordinating Committee, we meet once a month also. But the critical thing is the local coordinating committees. That's where I say the rubber meets the road. And that means local people, a coordinator, a deputy coordinator, interested people, community leaders, and organizations. A coalition of that at the local level. In Atlanta is going strong, in Washington is going strong, in New York is going strong. And we've identified 67 cities that have a large presence of African people in North America. And we have a 10-state strategy to 10 province in Canada, 50-state strategy to build state committees, and underneath them, these local committees. That's where the bottom meets the road. That's where it has to become a mass movement. And once a mass movement is in place, first we're going to have we have a convention here in North America in Atlanta this October. Eventually, shortly thereafter, there's going to be a global Congress. And that's where we're going to begin to talk about. Hold on just a second. My door rang and my daughter's here. Just a second.
It's the water people.
Oh, they weren't supposed to come now. Boy.
You want me to tell them to come back?
Ask them, can they come back in an hour? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the bottom line is at the local level that where the rubber meets the road. That's where we're going to build a mass movement. And if that's happening here in North America, it's happening in the Caribbean, it's happening across the continent of Africa. Eventually, you're going to have a critical mass, which will, as Diop says, the top people will have no choice but to fall in place or step aside. And that's what we're doing. So it has to come from the bottom up. And that's the way it's going to be successful. And that's the approach that the Pan-African Federalist movement is taking. Bear in mind that 70% of the African population on the continent is under the age 30. And we have a very strong youth movement. And these people have no vested interest in maintaining government. And they could see the bigger picture. because the bigger picture, the fact is, here's the facts. Here's the cold facts. And this is why Nyeri says that that without unity, there is no future for Africa. The cold facts are, when you got 55 different states and you got China coming in with its people, they pick us off one by one, and they make agreements with each other. And actually, they're surrendering part of their sovereignty involuntarily. Right. What we're talking about in the Pan-African Federalist movement is a voluntarily surrender your sovereignty to a greater African government. So you surrender foreign affairs. So we have a united foreign affairs. You surrender military affairs. So we have a united military affair that we can talk again from a position of strength with any power on earth. You surrender monetary affairs so that there's a single currency and whatnot. And then we begin to build an infrastructure in Africa that connects the countries, which will now be states, together. Because the economic infrastructure right now is geared toward the European metropolitan centers from and we inherited from colonialism. You have a state that's the borders are arbitrary, but you could be in Ivory Coast, which was colonized by France, and Ghana, which was colonized by Britain. They're right next door to each other. In order to trade, they may have to go through Paris, London, and come back down. We want them to be able to deal directly with each other. We want a single currency so that wherever you go in Africa, it's not a problem. I could, on a small level, when I was in Senegal, when I was in Ghana, and we returned, we had to come back through Senegal. We stopped in the Ivory Coast, and it was a bunch of Black people from America with money in their pocket, but all we had was Ghanaian cedis and American dollars. We stopped in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, and there was a group of people. We got off the plane for a break. There was a group of people who had things, a group of locals who had things to trade with us. We all wanted them, but we couldn't trade with them because we didn't have their currency. So they lost economically, and then we lost because we didn't. There's a whole bunch of things we would have had to bring back to America. If there was a single currency, that's just a small example. The difference between if there's a single currency, and this is what Kwame Nkrumah was talking about in 1963. So this is again, and I don't like the term dream. Kwame Nkrumah and Marcus Garvey had a vision, and it is the mission of the Pan-African Federalist movement to bring that vision into fruition. So and we have to keep our eye on the prize, and the prize is a united African states. And we're talking about definitely by the end of this decade, and I'm hoping that in the first half of this decade. I mean, I've been committed to bringing the United African States into existence by 2020, back in 1995, personally. And my book talks about that because I knew 2020 was coming up. 18 countries be celebrating the anniversary. It's also the 100th anniversary of the All African Peoples Convention in 1920, underneath Marcus Garvey, where they adopted the red, black, and green. And they also the first provisional president of Africa was elected. Garvey ran against Dr. Lewis from Nigeria, and Garvey won in a democratic election. By the way, 25,000 delegates from 40 different countries, meant for the entire month of August. And Africa is under complete colonial control. We under Jim Crow. That was a legitimate African invention. The election of Garvey as provisional president of Africa, he's the duly elected first provisional president, as I see it. But this year this August is the 100th anniversary of that. And it's also the 60th anniversary of these African countries. So that confluence I saw is being, I recognized that confluence was coming 25 years ago. And I said, this is a time. But we in the Pan-African Federalist movement has declared that this is our great leap forward, the year 2020, which means that we're going to be getting our structures all together across the globe. We're going to be mobilizing our local groups, and we're going to be in preparation for the global Pan-African Federalist Congress, which is going to lay the groundwork for establishing the United African States and bringing it into physical existence. But it's no longer a vision; it's something we want to see. I'm looking forward to being in Africa and seeing the first president of the United African States put up her hand, or his hand, to take the oath as the president of United African States, and that will alter the destiny of African people wherever we are on earth.
Right. Absolutely. Now, I love the vision. Okay, and I think it's what's needed, and I think this is something that Arikana Chiambori Quo has called for. as well as our brother in South Africa. Name slips me, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. The leader of the ANC, EFF, Julius Malema, calling for a united. They're calling for a united Africa, with no borders, single currency, one president. You're taking it a step farther and asking for those black countries outside of Africa to be part of that united
African states.
African states.
Right.
Yes. So I'm 100% for that. What I would like to know is, because there's other organizations who are trying to do something similar. We had the sister on earlier today, Elena Porter, who's with the Afro Descendants Confederation movement. And then we have there's the State of the African Diaspora. There's your organization. There are others. So instead, this is my thing. Instead of all these different people who are ultimately trying to accomplish the same thing, why aren't all these people who have the same idea, all these organizations who have the same goals, why are they all not working together instead of somebody over here trying to do something, somebody over here trying to do it, somebody over here? Why don't, since we all have a common aim and objective, why don't all these people come together the same way they're asking the African states to, to come together? Why don't these organizations who are trying to do the same come together under one to push this thing forward?
Yeah, Bubba is like, I'm a old timer to some extent. I was at the Gary Convention in 1972, which brought together 10,000 people from across America. And one of the themes of the Gary Convention was unity without uniformity. And that is still something that could be valid today. The Pan-African Federalist movement has a exclusive and single goal, which is to bring about the United African States. There's no other goal that we have, no other mission. There's a whole lot of problems that African people have. We're dealing with the virus. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with AIDS. There's all sorts of organizations that are dealing with them, and we encourage them to continue to do that. But we have to keep our eye on the prize, because we believe that once the United African States comes into political existence, we will be in a better position to deal with all of these problems in a comprehensive way. So that's why we have to keep our eye on that prize. Now, the structure, and this is really happening. I mean, earlier this month, I met with the International Preparatory Commission via Zoom, and there were 25 people on the call. I was representing North America. There was somebody from the Caribbean. There was somebody from Latin America, West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, etc. And they overseeing the global movement. And each of us were reporting on what was happening in our regions. So we are, the Pan-African Federalist movement has a mission, but and once this mission is achieved, we cease to exist. Once I see the First Lady take the oath as the President of the United African States, the Pan-African Federalist movement, our mission is done. We've achieved it, so we cease to exist. I'm saying that in terms of reaching out to other organizations. I mentioned at the local level where the rubber meets the road, that it's a coalition. A coalition that includes a coordinator, a deputy coordinator, interested members, community leaders, and organizations. And we invite any organization to be a part of that coalition. Now, and we also we ask them not necessarily to surrender what their mission is, because we recognize their mission may not be exact. Ours is very specific. So, right. we ask them. Part of the coalition of the Pan-African Federalist movement is to achieve that mission that I just talked about, bringing the physical existence of the United African States. The other organizations who have other missions, they could continue to pursue those missions. And after the Pan-African Federalist movement ceases to exist, they will continue to exist because they're already there. But we're coming together for one reason. And then the structure at the local level, we invite everybody to get involved at that level. If you have an organization, come in. and we're going to be having a convention in Atlanta. We're probably going to end up we're figuring out ways to do it online now, but the convention is going to be the North American Pan-African Federalist Convention. And they're going to be doing the same in West Africa, East Africa, etc. But we're going to be putting together the platform that we want to take for North America. Our role in the Pan-African Federalist movement, our role in the United African States once it comes to existence, our things that we want to be guaranteed. We're going to be putting that together. So all of these, the reparations issue, we feel that a United African States, for example, would be we 1.3 trillion people would be in a much better position to demand reparations, not only from the United States, but from Europe, who stole a bunch of people from Africa, but we'd be in a much better position to do that. So anyway, in direct answer to your question, we're inviting all organizations to become part of the local coalition. We're inviting them to our convention, and we telling them you don't have to surrender your own sovereignty, because we have a very limited purpose, which is to bring the United African States into existence. That's the only reason we're around.
Right, absolutely. Okay, I understand. So Brother Youssef has a question here. He said, how does the United African State Federalist movement not once again subjugate the original tribal infrastructure? Is there a place for tribal leadership in this
yes,
this government?
The short answer is yes. Let me explain. Let me tell you why. It's a federation. A federation is that's an important word. A federation is a federation of states. The federal government, it only has the powers that have been surrendered by the states. So the powers that we want, the critical powers that the federal government will have will be in foreign affairs. So we have a single foreign policy for African people. Military affairs, so we have a unified military. Monetary and commercial affairs, so that we have a single currency, and we could control the trade, and we can control what China is doing and how they're coming in instead of them picking one off. That's basically what the federal government will do, and maybe some other things, but it's whatever they surrender, whatever the states surrender. Now the state that would mean that even though the president of Ghana is now governor, his state it still exists, and they're still governing things. Now, within the states, I mean, I'm married to, my wife is from Ghana. So within the states, I know that the existence, various ethnic groups have certain rights, and they're recognized. They would continue to have that. That would come underneath the states. That wouldn't come underneath the federal government. So the answer is, that's the short answer. Yes. I mean, the straight answer is yes. And I just explained why and how.
Right. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, let's see if we get some questions here.
Yeah, I see something up on the board. What do you think?
No, this one's Bessie says, I think a coalition is wonderful. When I think of all the groups doing different things, I know we have enough where together everything we need is covered. We just need unity of purpose and communication.
Yep, 100%. That's beautiful. I agree. And that's what we're trying to do. Again, a single focus, the United African States, bring it into political existence. That's a mission. Then we're a coalition to bring that about. That's all we're concerned about. I mean, it's not really all we're concerned about, but we believe that once that's done, everything that African people have to deal with could be dealt with in a more comprehensive and from a position of strength.
Okay. Now, Brother,
yep, I agree with this. Go ahead.
He's saying a lot of these African heads of states and their lackeys are going to resist hard. What is the strategy for dealing with their military and Western backing?
Okay. Again, the importance, the local coordinating committees is where the rubber meets the road. That's where you build up a mass movement. That's where you have the people. That's where and I'm talking local, like we have a state committee for New York State, for example, but we need a local committee in Harlem, a local committee in Bedford-Stuyvesant, a local committee in Jamaica and Queens, and the same would go for Detroit, for Los Angeles, for Atlanta. And the same would go for Accra, Nairobi, Johannesburg. So the local committees where you have the organizations, the individuals coming together, and where we have a petition that we also are circulating, and each region has to get at least 25,000. And our Secretary General, Brother Jomay of the global movement, recently said we need more than 20,000. We need 1 million signatures. But the petition, all it asks for is, do you support the idea of a united African states? We're not asking you even to get involved in the movement. Do you support the idea? So if we get people, millions of people supporting the idea, then we have a movement underneath us. And eventually, once you have a mass movement, it's not going to be easy, Brother Ahmed. If it was easy, it would have already been done. But once we have a mass movement on the ground, moving up, pushing for this idea, everybody eventually will fall in place, because we will be defining the reality of what the masses of African people need and want. And we're convinced, as Garvey was and Nkrumah was, that a united African states is in the best interest of African people, and it will alter the destiny of everyone on earth. And eventually they either fall in place or step aside. Old SNCC's slogan, move on over, or we move on over you.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So I definitely I'm 100% in support of what your mission is and to create this united African states. What do you want the listeners and viewers to do to help push this movement? Because all of us, I know, are not going to be going to Africa. A lot of people have expressed interest and they want to go, but we do need some type of something in place for the protection of those of us who will remain outside the continent. Also, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. It is not a balanced negotiation with China, 1 billion people negotiating with, say, Equatorial Guinea. You know what I'm saying? Or Botswana, teeny tiny Namibia. You know what I'm saying? And Djibouti. So it's better if we meet them as equals. We are 1 billion plus strong. They are 1 billion plus strong. You know what I mean? And then we can have some talks about something. You know what I'm saying? And on a level playing field. So I absolutely agree that that it's needed. So what do you want the people to do to get involved to help push this?
Okay, let me 1, 2, 3, because you said several different points. You're absolutely right in terms of us being able to deal with the powers that be from a position of strength. And also, okay, the other point is, you're right also that all African people in North America will not necessarily go to Africa, but we want them to have the right to go to Africa. That in and of itself is a political statement. That we know we have some place that we can go. Some of us will take advantage of it. Some of us, as you know, are already taking advantage of it. This we would just cement and make it a constitutional right of all African people in North America to be able to go back. But a great deal of us will stay here. And we stay here, we not surrendering 1 iota of the rights that the blood of our ancestors in North America put up with. We're not talking about giving up anything. We're talking about adding on something. It's not either or, it's plus, So we will continue to have our American citizenship, but we also have African citizenship. I'm glad you did that. You put that's the website of the Pan-African Federalist Movement. I invite people to take that down and visit that website. You'll see the petition that I was just talking about on the front page. And if you want to get further involved, you see a way you can actually become active. That'll connect you. That's the answer to your other question. So anyway, I kind of lost my thought there, but that's okay. I'm 73.
You were saying that we're not taking away anything, we're adding to, and that even though some people may not necessarily go or have plans to go, they should have the right to go. Exactly.
And what that does also, from a global perspective, like Malcolm used to say that people used to say we don't stand a Chinaman's chance but people don't say that anymore. I remember when I was a kid back in Lincoln Project in Harlem, there was this funny saying that the kids used to say, "Ching Chong Charlie sitting on the fence, try to make $1 out of 15 cents." Nobody says anything like that anymore. And once Africa, oh, we kind of got frozen out. I'm here. I don't know if you could still hear me. I could see you. I'm going to continue to talk. Yeah, once I don't see you, Sister Yaa. I don't know if you see me. Were you able to see me all the time I was talking?
Yeah, that you were live. I had to step away, so keep talking.
All right, no problem. I'm an old time. I'm getting into this 21st century technology. I need to bring my 14-year-old daughter in. She could teach me a lot on that. As a youth, will also bring a lot to the Pan-African Federalist movement, because they will have creative ways to reach out to their peers in ways that we can't even think about. You know, we need to make this a popular movement like Bob Marley, Africa Must Unite. We need to have it in the culture. We need to have it in the songs. People need to be dancing to it. And it needs to be a mass movement that cannot be resisted. One of the ways is to connect to our website, and you can see it on the screen. It's https://www.cbpm, which stands for Collective Black People's Movement, but cbpn.org/PAFMNORAM.html. That's Pan-African Federalist Movement North America. Connect to that website, write that down, and that will you can sign the petition that I'm talking about at no cost to you. You could get further involved. You'll see a bunch of documents and things that we've done. We were in Atlanta. We were in December of 2018. We had our post Congress, Pan-African Federalist post Congress, where people came together in Ghana. It was also the 60th anniversary of the All African People's Congress. And when I was talking about earlier with Kwame Nkrumah said that independence now, tomorrow's the United States of Africa. But we were in Ghana at a pre-Congress in 1950 in 2018, and people from across the globe. We elected our national our global chairperson, who's a brother. Now it's brother Adama from Mali, and brother Amadou Seek from who's here in. He's from Senegal, but he's our deputy chair, and brother Jomé is our Secretary General at the global level. But here in the North American level, I'm the coordinator. We have a new deputy coordinator, brother Cliff. We have a Secretary General, Sister Nbantu, who's based in Atlanta. We have a field organizer, a chief field organizer, brother Senghor Baye, and his responsibility is to mobilize the local coordinating committees across the globe. He's the one who we holding accountable for bringing for most accountable. We all field organizers for building the mass movement that I just described. You could, if you visit the website, you will see documents related to this. You will see connections, and you'll be able to sign the petition. You'll be able to you'll see more information about that convention, the post Congress, the Pan-African Post Congress that took place in 2018. You'll see more information about that. This website that's just put up now, UnitedAfricaBy2020.org. That's my personal website, but it also promotes it promotes my book, the United Africa by 2020, but it also promotes the Pan-African Federalist movement. And you'll see right at the top is saying the mission is to bring the United African States into political existence in less than a generation. And there's links to the North American website. There's links to the global Pan-African Federalist website, and there's other links there. And there's also some interesting blogs that I talked about Neri when he said Africa must be united. Without unity, there is no future for Africa. That speech is in there. A speech I gave at the Schomburg in 2014 on the 100th anniversary of Garvey's organization. I gave a speech at the Schomburg in Harlem. You can actually see me giving a speech, and that's a blog on that website. Kwame Nkrumah and his significance to the Pan-African Federalist movement. Martin Luther King, his significance. So you can find a number of different links on there. Also, you could access the book, United Africa by the New Pan-Africanism 2020. Also, you could access all of the links to everything that has to do with the Pan-African Federalist movement, both domestically and globally. So that's that second link that's up on the board. So I would encourage you to visit both of those. Visit the North American one first.
And anybody who wants to get in touch with you can reach you on this website here that's up now. Is that correct?
Yes, or they can reach me on the other one. The other one has my phone number. We have a dedicated phone for the Pan-African Federalist movement of North America, and you could text me on that phone. You could leave a message, and that phone is up front and center on the on the North American Pan-African Federalist website. Can you put that one back up again? And
sure.
And but the phone number is, if you want to write it down, is 518. Yes, this one. 518. Excuse me. 518-649-7798. 518-649-7798. That's the dedicated number for the Pan-African Federalist movement in North America. That's the only cause that it takes. It has to be related to that. And you can leave a message there. You could text me there. You know, or any other the modern 21st century message. You could call me. You could speak to me. You could text me. You could leave a message on there. And that's, again, the number is 518-649-7798. And this is the website, the key website. And then the other website is also good because that links you to a lot of other things. So I would concentrate on those. That's how you can get in touch with us. That's how you can get involved with the movement. Brother Senghor Baye, our chief field organizer, he would be able to connect you with a local coordinating committee in your area. If there's not one in there, he can tell you how to start one. So that's a good front page to do that. And yeah, and another thought, just in terms of what does a United African States with 1.3 billion people mean to us here in North America? That not only will we be looking at ourselves differently, but the world will be looking at us differently. I would think that even issues like we've been dealing with police brutality from Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin to this most recent case. And it's always the same story.
And it'll be somebody else tomorrow or the day after.
Like Farrakhan said back in 1972, the names and the faces have changed, but the game is still the same. So, but once a united Africa comes into political existence, that's what you call a game changer. That will change the game. People will think twice about dealing with how they deal with this. Remember, I mentioned Malcolm talked about China, how people used to make fun of China. People won't be making fun of African people. It'd be a good thing to be African people. People who want to be African. And also psychologically, in the young minds. My wife was a nurse, school nurse. She back in Albany, a young 5-year-old kid told her, "You're not a nurse." And she said, "Why not?" "Because you're black." Now, remember the picture of Barack Obama when he's president and it's a young boy feeling his hair to see it's the same? That's a tremendous impact that has on the psychological makeup of that child. My daughter is 14. I took her into the polls in 2008 and let her actually pull a thing for Barack Obama. And then she doesn't remember that, but then I took her back in again in 2012 and let her do it. That's something she could tell her grandchildren too. But we used to talk about what happens if there's a black president. The only president she remembers other than the current occupant in the White House is Barack Obama. So if her psyche is set at that level, what do you think she'll be saying? You can't be a nurse? So that's just I'm not even dealing with his policies. I'm dealing with the psychological level it has in terms of the ability of I understand. Yeah. Okay, you got that. Multiply that geometrically by the reemergence of Africa as a world power. And I say reemergence because
absolutely.
It will change the game. It will change how we would think ourselves. So
it's true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
we will see ourselves as part of something big and powerful and mighty, and we will be proud. and our children will be proud, and we won't have people walking around here ashamed to say that they're African, because they will see African as a world superpower. So absolutely, I agree with you 100%. It's important. Some of us already have this pride, anyway, because we know who we are. We know the history of Africa. We know that this is not the way she was before. This is something that has happened to her and happened to us as African people. But we absolutely do know, that we can reclaim our position in this world. And so we are proud anyway. We are proud African people regardless. So that's some of us. But you're right. For others, they do need to see African operating on the world stage from a position of power. And I agree that the only way that really can happen in the way that we need it to happen in the 21st century is for the borders to, for there to be one Africa, one country called Africa that includes all these other places as states. You're absolutely right. I can't even argue with you. You're 100. I agree with the mission of the Pan-African Federalist movement 100%. So there's no logical reason why anybody can find to say that it doesn't make sense that should happen. That should happen. If you are an African person of African descent, you will agree that this should happen.
Well, if you and I think you're 100% right. And that's the first thing when you go to the website. The petition. It doesn't cost you anything to sign the petition. And again, and all we're asking is, what you just said, do you support the idea of a United African States? If we can get over 1 million people signing that in North America, West Africa, etc., when we meet as a global Congress, we will have behind us something that the heads of states will, again, if they can count. Politicians, one thing they could do, they could count. If they see that, they either step aside or not. And another point you made in terms of our view of ourselves, and I think it's a very important point historically. I see, and I reference in my book, but in general, the last 500 years, which has been, we were captured, kidnapped, forced migrated, enslaved, and then colonized. They weakened the continent so much by capturing and depopulating it, and then they went in and just conquered it outright. That's really, and then we begin to bounce back with the 37-year African freedom movement in the 20th century, from Ghana becoming independent March 6th to Mandela taking the oath in May of 1994. That's a 37-year period. Over 40 countries became independent, but they became but how independent? And we saying that there's limited independence. But we want to consolidate the sovereignty that was gained so that we have a global African sovereignty, and we have a global African political entity, in Garvey's words, on which the sun shall never set. So again, it will alter, the whole history. So what we're talking about is a return to our traditional history, a return to our traditional greatness. The last 500 years, it's just the last half of the last millennium. Because in the first half we had Ghana, Songhai, and if you go back, you had ancient Egypt, which was you measure ancient Egypt, a Kemet's history as a world power. You don't measure it in centuries, you measure it in millenniums, thousands of years. You measure it in thousands of years. So for the overwhelming majority of our history, Africa has been a world power. There was an interruption in that process in the last 500 years, and we feel it because we're in that period. But it's our mission to restore and to reclaim our traditional history and bring us back to the world stage where we belong.
Right on. Right on. Absolutely. 100%. Ashe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, man, yes, we've got a lot of work, but you know what? We're up for the task. And I believe now our people, there is a great awakening. I call it the 21st century African Renaissance. Our people are waking up. Did you see how they converged on Ghana from all over the world last year? Did you see our people? It was a beautiful sight for the whole year of 2019. And I suspect, I don't have proof, but all this coronavirus pandemic and all of this shutting down travel. See, the last thing these people want, Brother AMSATA, is is a united African people. That's because it's over for them, and they know it. You know, so they try to find any kind of way. You know, we know the tricks that they do. It's over for them. Once African, this great awakening, there's an awakening happening across the globe. We find pockets of African people all over who have, for been out of their African mind, starting to wake up and realize, you know what, I'm Black, I'm proud, I'm African. My people come from Africa, you know, and people starting to look towards Africa and travel there in ways that when I was a little girl, I never heard about anybody going to Africa to do anything. You know what I'm saying? All I knew about Africa growing up in Mississippi was Sally Fields on TV talking about feed the children and showing us some hungry little Black babies with big stomachs and some flies on them. I never heard of anybody, but nowadays, man, it's like the winds have changed. Something is awakening in our people, and our people are saying, Africa is going to be free. We ready to go home. We are African people. They're showing the beauty of Africa, you know, that our people, that they tried to keep away from us for so long. You know, we've been separated by language. You know, I feel so bad because I only speak English, and I got beautiful Black brothers and sisters right to the south of me. They are speaking Spanish, or they're speaking French, or they're speaking Portuguese, and we can't even communicate with each other. You know what I'm saying? And it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. And I think all of these things were done intentionally. But we have to find a way to spread this message of unity amongst our people, and no matter what language they speak, we got to spread this movement, the Pan-African Federalist movement in Portuguese. We have to spread it in Spanish. We have to spread it in French. You know, we have to spread this Exodus Alliance movement. We have to let our people know that we are not just over here doing this stuff for us in North America, that this is a movement for all African people, no matter where we are, even those on the continent of Africa as well. We are one global African family, and the time has come for us to act like it, and act like the original people that God put on this earth, the mothers and fathers of this planet, the caretakers. We are the custodians of this earth, and we have let some people take away that position from us, and that's why we have so much nonsense going on the planet now. People destroying the air, destroying the soil, destroying the ocean, the water. That's because we, the custodians, have basically given up our position as the custodians of the earth.
Yeah, the whole thing is, once Africa unites, not only will we be in a better position, in a stronger position to take care of all of our affairs and to master our own destiny, we will also be in a position to bring our unique contribution to the uplift of all humanity. And part of that, our value system that you're speaking to, like in ancient Kemet, Egypt, there was a value system called Ma'at. And Ma'at has 42 different points. And part of it is talking about protecting the air, protecting the soil, protecting your resources. So we would be in a position to protect all of those resources and bring new value to the world in terms of the importance of those. There's a spirit. There's something that and then I'm going to go to Nkrumah and Neri in a second. But there's something that a Native American expression that came to me one time that stuck with me. He said that we do not inherit the land from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children or from our grandchildren. So if you consider yourself to be borrowing the land from your grandchildren, then you got to take care of it because it's not yours. So that's
exactly.
So that's and that's the type of philosophy that the Pan-African Federalist movement has. Now, Nkrumah says that regardless of whether you're born in North America, South America, or any other place in the world, you are Africans and you are part of the African nation. And he's talking about the global African nation that our mission is to bring into political existence. So
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned Neri before. He says that without unity there is no future for Africa, and that's his parting words. Is a
Right.
75-year-old person who's going to die in 2 years in 1999. His observations of what his generation did. He said we succeeded in liberating, but we failed miserably on the question of African unity. And his challenge to us is to pick up that ball. And also, it's important to have a long history to know that we weren't invented in America, that we're an African people, and that we had a long history before we came to America, before we were kidnapped, and all of this. So all we trying to do is not all. What the mission of us is to bring Africa back to the world, the stage of world history, unite us as a people, consolidate the sovereignty that we gained in the freedom movement, so that we could keep it and then not be taken by Chinese and other people. It'd be consolidated amongst ourselves, so that we could deal with everything from a position of strength. And I really thank you, Sister Yaa, for this opportunity to talk about the Pan-African Federalist movement and talk about the uplift of our people. Our convention, our convention in Atlanta, October 15th to the 19th this year. The slogan or the theme of it is African political unification for sovereignty and upliftment. Because sovereignty is very important, because our sovereignty has been taken from us, even though we're flag independent. So we want to consolidate the sovereignty and protect the sovereignty of all African people. So anyway, that's our goal, and we need. And I encourage people to visit the website, get involved in the movement. If you can't get involved, sign the petition, say you support the idea, because that's involvement, and it'll give us a strong position as we're moving forward. But thanks again, Asante Sana, my dear sister. I really appreciate this opportunity.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. This has been very enlightening and much needed information for the people. So I want to thank you, and let's do it again. Time on how things are going for our people. So definitely let's plan to do it again and have you come back.
Good. Yeah. And in terms of a positive outlook, in terms of the fact that I know we're going to do it, it's not a question of whether or not. Bear in mind, we had some technological problems in the beginning. We conquered them. We knew we were going to do it, right? And then we did it.
Right.
That's just a small sample.
Right. Absolutely.
So we're going to do the same thing in terms of uniting Africa. You and I, sister, will be in Africa watching the person put up their arms to take the oath of the first president of the United African States.
Ashe. I'm claiming it. I'm claiming it. Thank you so much, BaBa AMSATA. Thank you all for joining us again today. I mean, this has been a very educational and enlightening episode. And we want to thank our dear brother again for coming on and sharing all this information with us. And I want all of you to go and sign the petition. This is important. Okay. Matter of fact, this is your obligation. This is your obligation as an African descendant, as a person of African descent, to go and sign this, because this is something that we need. So I'm not even asking. I'm telling y'all, get off and go sign the petition. I'm going to do the exact same thing myself. Okay. So I love you all. Peace and Black power.
Peace, blessings, and African unification. Now.
Ashe.
Okay. Good.